I call the honourable member Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a great pleasure to have the final slot in today's general debate. And it's been a week of very interesting facts and quotes. The one that I was most interested in was the Fairfax poll, which indicated that most New Zealanders don't want more tax and spend. Funnily, it was also a poll that said National is riding a wave of soaring optimism, which I thought was rather good. The poll said that 67% opposed and only 27% were in favour of raising taxes to fund new initiatives, which must have come as a bit of a shock to the Labour Party and the Greens. But what I found most interesting was the quote from David Cunliffe, who said, the question was unfair because the vast majority of New Zealanders wouldn't be affected by its planned tax rises, which would include a higher top tax rate and a capital gains tax. And I thought, well, there it is. There's the Labour philosophy in a nutshell. It's perfect. You're going to give lollies to everybody, but you'll only make a few people pay for it. And there's the way to win political salvation. But of course, nobody believes that. They all know that we all end up paying it for it in the end. So we already have massive redistribution in this country, where we have the top 6% of income taxpayers paying nearly 40% of the tax, more when you take working for families into account. And don't forget that about 70% of taxpayers in New Zealand pay 17.5% tax rate or less. So this is a government that has been very successful at keeping taxes down, and New Zealanders like it. It's interesting when you drill down to the figures. Funnily enough, it's the under-30s who are strongly opposed to higher taxes and more spending. And funnily enough, more Maori, 50% net disapproval amongst Maori. More Maori than Europeans opposed raising taxes to pay more spending. Those with no qualifications at all were most stridently against paying more taxes and having more spending by government. And those with household incomes below 50,000 were more opposed to paying more taxes than the higher people. And New Zealanders have realised that what they've realised is they are better equipped to spend their money than the government. And that's why, because money is very hard to find, it's hard to earn, and it's annoying to see it being wasted by councils and governments. And that's why this government has been so disciplined in its spending. It's been so disciplined in the way that it's gone about making sure the public service does things, gets results for the best prices. And that's why this government enjoys the level of support that it has. I must say I found it positively weird listening to Mr. Hipkins' contribution on debt, saying that the National Party's been bad because it has left a high level of debt. Well, he seems to ignore the Christchurch earthquakes and the billions of dollars that were spent. He ignores the global financial crisis, and he ignores the lag effect. Yes, I mean, Labour inherited a well-run economy in 1999 and held things reasonably firm for a few years. But they left a country pregnant with 10 years of future deficits in 2008 and massively unfunded spending schemes, which has meant that the government, if it had carried on the policies that we inherited in 2008, we would have massive deficits and massive debt. But the National Party did continue spending to protect the vulnerable and to deal with the earthquake. But importantly, it has set a path back to surplus, which we are going to achieve this year, and it has got a path back to paying back debt. And that's why New Zealanders trust the National Party with the economy. It's also weird to hear from the Greens how they spend their whole time arguing for measures that will increase the cost of energy in the economy, and yet they jump up and down with a couple of gimmicks about somehow subsidising solar energy, as if that's a salvation to a problem that they have created themselves by advocating for policies that increase the price of energy. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to comment particularly on Mr. Shane Jones's claims. There's been lots of allegations, lots of innuendos, not many facts, but I'm sure that we'll listen to. There'll be due process, and they'll be very carefully figured out what's going to be, that will take all those issues seriously and get to the bottom of them. But I must say that there's a strong anti-Australian strand coming through everything he said. He was standing there this morning in FEC going on about us Aussie banks, and he's going on about Aussie companies all the time. Well, I don't think there's not a hang of a lot in favour for this country and taking on an anti-Australian campaign such as has been carried out by Mr Jones. And here we look at, I wonder, there's that old saying that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And I've never really understood that until now. But when we look at Labour, when they're on to the third leader, and we've got Mr Cunliffe, it's a bit like the words of the singer Pink.
Honourable members, the time for this debate has expired.
He's pushing all the buttons and nothing's happening.
Order. The time for this debate has expired. I'm therefore going to call on private and local order of the day, number 1.
Tasman District Council validation and recovery of certain